To record. So the record is on right now. So again, thank you. So everybody, my name is Jennifer Coe. I'm the executive director at YMCA Camp Keenan, and this will be my sixth summer at Keenan. Although I've been a camp director for over 20 years, having worked with all different youth serving organizations, from New York to Virginia to all the way up in Alaska. And I truly do say that working at Camp Keenan, it is the camp director's dream. It is an absolutely beautiful camp. It is small in scale, but it is large in activities and community. It is right on the shores of Lake Ontario and is just a really beautiful site. So let's go. So what's going to happen tonight? We're going to run through, I think, frequently asked questions that families have, as well as items that are very specifically in our family guide. I'll talk to you a little bit about the camp schedule, and we'll go over a little bit about the forms that are required for camp. Lots of you have already turned those in, and I appreciate that. But you may find out as I'm talking that there's something that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And so this, it gives you time to take care of things before your camper comes to camp. We'll talk about packing for camp, which was the number one question that folks asked on our Zoom. And the second question was about missing home. What do we do if we do miss home? And then I'll leave some time at the end to answer any questions that you might have. I will just add to that if you have any questions that are specific to your camper, meaning that there's something that aren't just, generic or general, but they're very specific to your camper and their situation, please do feel free to email me those questions just to preserve your privacy and so that I can give you individual attention. You can also add questions into the chat as we go. And if I don't get a chance to answer them as we're going along, then I will make sure to answer them at the end. The directors at camp. So it is myself, as I mentioned, Jennifer, and then my assistant camp director is Diane Smith. Many of you who are familiar with the Lockport Y will have met Diane because she is also a member services rep at the front desk at the Lockport Y. She also runs lots of our kids' classes at the Lockport Y, and she has been with us at Keenan. This will be her second summer with us. So welcome to Camp Keenan. So I always like to start with that video because it just kind of gives a fun overview of some of our activities at camp. So I want the kids out there, I want you to be thinking about what might be your favorite activity at camp that you are looking for. So again, just to mention myself again, this will be my sixth summer at camp. I have worked both at Keenan and then the summer after COVID, we split our summer, and so I spent half the summer at Weona, which is our other overnight camp that is in the Buffalo Niagara Association. I've been a camp director or working at camp for over 25 years. And I was a camper, I was a CIT, which is a counselor in training, and I have worked at the pool, I have taught archery, I've worked in the kitchen. So I've done a little bit of everything and am very happy to call Keenan my home. I have three fur babies at home. My largest is Max, and he is the one that is sitting in the picture right here. And his favorite thing is to go for rides, to get ice cream, and to chase yellow tennis balls. That is his favorite thing. So let me see if I can go ahead and start a poll. Sometimes these polls work and sometimes they don't. So let's see if I can launch it. So here's the question. Which activities is your camper looking forward to? So kids, go ahead and take a look at this. What is an activity that you are looking forward to? And you can go ahead and you can put in your vote online. Oh, it's very even right now. Give about 10 more seconds. Make sure everybody participates. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me go ahead and end the poll and I'll share the results. It's pretty even, my friends. We're looking forward to being outside and going swimming, doing archery and climbing. I know the first one that came up was arts and music. Doesn't seem like anybody wants to meet new people though, but you will get a chance to, I promise. So it looks like we're looking forward to a little bit of everything that camp has to offer. That is awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that. So for those of you who haven't been to Camp Keenan before and haven't seen one of our webinars yet, this is an overview of camp. And so what you're going to see at the top in the northernmost section, that is Lake Ontario. And then you'll see the shoreline, and then you'll see kind of like this big square. And that is basically camp. Camp is about 50 acres. So it's kind of like, in Pooh's Corner, that 50 acres there. So it's right on Lake Ontario. We get these beautiful breezes off of the lake. You can see beautiful sunsets. You get the breeze. Sometimes we can see all the way across the lake and we can see Toronto or big barges that come across the lake. The landscape of camp is relatively flat. So you don't have a lot of hills and ravines. I can basically sit at my office, which is kind of in the middle there near the shoreline, to the right of the pool, and I can see the majority of camp that's not in the woods. So the portions that are in the woods, we have a big section where you can go out and do survival and nature activities and build a fort. We have our low ropes course and our high ropes course that's out there as well. A lot of people, they try to identify what's in that picture. And the thing they can easily identify is number one, the pool, which is the big blue rectangle. And then to the left of the pool, there's a little yellow rectangle, and that's our bounce pillow. And everybody really enjoys that as well. Camp Keenan has been in the same location for 100 years. So it is our birthday this year. So just kind of looking a little bit at the schedule for the whole summer, we run overnight camp for 7 weeks. And within that 7 weeks, we basically have three different options that campers can go to. We have the basic, the traditional camp, which is Sunday to Friday. We have 6 sessions of that. And because the 4th of July falls in the middle of the week this year, our seventh session, our first session of camp, is back to nature, and that is a Sunday to Wednesday session. That is a really great session, especially if you're a first-time camper or if you wanted to add on a session, because the fee on that one is really low. It's the same cost as a first experience camp. And again, because it's shorter. So it's Sunday to Wednesday, and then you get to go home and enjoy the 4th of July with your family. The other option we have, other than that traditional Sunday to Friday week, is our first experience camps. And first experience is generally open for ages 5 to 9. So we will allow campers that are 5 and ready to come to camp up through age 9. So we extended that age this year, and we offer that for 5 different weeks during the summer. And that is always a Wednesday to a Friday session. So it's 2 nights, 3 days. The kids that come to First Experience Camp, they get to do a little bit of everything we have at camp, just not as much as the kids that come for the full week. They do still get to experience our final campfire and our picnic when parents come and pick them up on Friday. Our third option for camp is our leadership programs. And those are our leader in training and our counselor in training programs, which are for ages 14 and above. The LITs stay at camp for 2 weeks and the CITs stay at camp for 3 weeks. So let's stop there for just a second and let's see if we can find another poll to do. I'm interested. Oh, let's get that out of there. Let's see. Do, do, do. Now, most everybody here likely has registered for camp, but let me ask you, who has registered for overnight camp? Let's see if there's anybody who maybe hasn't registered for camp yet. Let's take a look at that. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so it looks like everybody here who has already registered for camp, and that is great. There are still spots in most weeks of camp. So I will say the Olympics week, which is July 28th through August 2nd, that is almost full for traditional campers. It is full for girls. There are a couple spots left for boys, and there's a couple spots left in first experience. But that has been the most popular week this year at camp. Other than that, there are spots in all of the other programs, but some of them are starting to narrow in. So they're starting to close. So let's take a moment and let's talk a little bit about some of the boring parts of camp. And that is paperwork and forms and rules and all of that kind of stuff. So everybody has already gotten a link to our family guide. If you, for some reason, don't feel that you've got it, make sure you've gone back and you've checked maybe in your spam or emails that look like they're coming from the Y, because I've sent out notices 3 times now with links to the family guide and to the forms. And so when you go into that email, there'll be a link and it will take you to this family guide. And there are lots of information in here. I will say 90% of the questions that were asked in the Google Forms today are all things that are covered in the family guide. And again, I don't ever mind you asking again. Sometimes there's a lot of information. So that's why I like to come on here and do a webinar, because sometimes when we hear it or we see it, we're able to find things a little bit better. The first thing, and probably the most imminent deadline, are our paperwork deadlines. And when I say that it's a deadline, this is a recommended time that we really need you to turn in paperwork, because it gives us a chance to be able to look over those forms and see if there's campers who have any specific needs that we can assist with. We have a lot of requirements and regulations from the New York State Department of Health that says things that we have to have on camp. And so it'll take us a good week or two to go through all of those forms that are coming in right now for the over 300 campers that we currently have at camp. So these are things you want to make sure that you have submitted. In the family guide, it does mention that we prefer to have these a hard copy, because faxes and digital copies do not always transfer over correctly, and we have to have them very legible in a certain format for the Department of Health and for our nurse to be able to read and be able to answer any questions that we need. So in the family guide, there's a link. It says all the forms can be found here. So you just open up that folder and all the forms are there. And there's a camper information form, health information. There's 2 medical information forms. There is an SFSP eligibility form. So there's lots of things there, but this is from the family guide that tells you what is needed. Now, where do you turn them in? You can turn them in to the Lockport Family YMCA. You can drop them off or you could mail them. You could bring them to the open house that we have coming up on Sunday, and you can give them directly to me. Or if you are closer to one of our other Buffalo Niagara branches, so Southtowns, Independent Health, Kenton, if you're closer to any of those, you can always drop it off at those locations and ask if they could forward it to me. It might take a couple more days, but whatever's most convenient for you. So the first set of those forms is this camper information form. And on this form, this is mostly what we use in case we need to contact you, in case there's an emergency, in case, maybe your camper is having some problems adjusting and we want to reach out to you to see if you have any advice. So this is contact information. and who can pick up your camper. So this page is very, very important, and we will use this at check-in when you arrive to camp, as well as check out. This is where each parent will sign off. Parents, make sure you also include yourself as emergency contacts and authorized pickups. So don't just assume because your information is on their files somewhere else that that's okay. Make sure you also list yourself as one of those contacts that are in here. So that's the C form, camper information. The second form is our medication administration. There are 2 pages, and the reason is because one of the pages is for parents to fill out. It says, can we help your camper administer sunscreen, bug repellent, okay, those kind of things. We have to have your permission for those, as well as you'll see on this form. So those type of things, we only need a parent signature for. Then the other 2 questions is, can they take over-the-counter medications? You have to give us permission. Yes, they can take over-the-counter medications, but you'll also see that in red it says, if you want your campers to have over-the-counter medications at camp, your doctor also has to approve that. Because the way the state of New York is in licensing, a nurse cannot administer medication without a doctor's order, even if the parent has already said they can. It's very similar to the rules that are in schools. The third question is, will your child be having any prescription medication while at camp? Things that are regularly scheduled. And if that's yes, then again, it directs you with those red letters that you also have to have your doctor sign off. So that first page is parents. The second page is where your doctor signs off. So if you want your camper to have over-the-counter medications, then the doctor says, yep, that's okay, and they'll sign on the bottom. If they have any prescription medication, the doctor has to write exactly what they're going to have on this page, and they have to sign. If your child is not going to need any over-the-counter medications, if they're not going to need any prescription medications, you don't have to turn in that second page. Okay, you'll just mark no and no on the first page, and that's all you need. But if they don't have a doctor's signature, we can't give medications of any kind at camp. And what's a medication? It's anything that can alter the biology of the body. So it includes over-the-counter medications like Tylenol or Advil or Benadryl. It includes prescription medications. So if they're taking prescription Claritin for allergies, or they're taking a medication for I don't know, eczema, those are medications. Other things that are medications are things like vitamins, melatonin. All of those kind of things are considered medications and have to have a doctor's order, even if they're over the counter. Third form that you have in there is your health history. This tells us basically what are things that have happened to your camper in the past, and things that we want to watch out for. Biggest things are, do they have any allergies that we can help them with? Do they have any dietary restrictions? Like, are they vegetarian or have to have a gluten-free diet? Do they have any restrictions while they're at camp? The second page of that it really has to do with how can we help your camper succeed the most? Do they have any mental, emotional, or social challenges that we need to watch out for and that we can assist with? And you also want to make sure you include a copy of their current immunization record. If you look in the family guide, you'll see a whole list of different places that you can get that form if you don't already have it. The last form that I include in there is it's called our Summer Food Service Program. Camp Keenan participates with New York State and the SFSP program, which provides us with dollars at the end of the summer to help reimburse some of the food costs that we incur at camp. It allows us to be able to get fresh fruits and vegetables and higher quality foods than maybe you would see in some other places. We really ask as many parents as possible to fill this out, especially if your household, anyone in your household receives SNAP or WIC if your household includes a foster child or any household that has a gross annual income of less than $100,000. Depending on the number of folks that are in your family, that may mean you're eligible for this program. Nobody knows about it except for me. I get these forms, I determine eligibility, and I turn in information to the state. Nobody else will know, but it does really help us to be able to reimburse some of our food costs while at camp. If you find that your family is not eligible for any of these and they do not qualify, you can just turn this in with the rest of your paperwork and just write on it, not eligible. That just lets me know that I don't have to try to track down the paperwork if you haven't turned it in. Okay, now it is time for poll number 3. Question I want to ask you is, I'm going to type this into the chat, so it's not a poll, it's a chat question. What is something that you have at your house that if you could bring it to camp, you would make sure to bring it to camp? What is something that you really think you want to make sure that you bring to camp with you? Put it in the chat. And it's okay if it's something you're not supposed to have, because we're going to talk about that pretty soon, about what you should bring and what you shouldn't bring to camp. What is something that you have at your house that you would really like to bring to camp with you? Oh, we have some great answers. We have an elephant. Okay. Hopefully this is a small stuffed elephant and not a full-size one, because that might not fit in the cabin. Sunscreen, absolutely. Water boots, good thing. Those are all good things that you should bring to camp, unless it's a full-size elephant. Then we might have to talk. We might have to find it an alternate location. Awesome. So we're going to talk here, answer some more questions. So this section is in the family guide, and it's all about communication. Who do you go to if you have a question? And this is basically for our families right now. Who do you go to? So if you have a question about anything that happens at camp, arriving, departing, packing lists, cabin mates, food, medications, worries, or concerns, that goes to me. I would be happy to answer them for you. So you have my email address. You have my year-round voicemail. There's the phone number for camp, but that's only answered during the summer season. So it's not answered right now. But if you have a question about paying your bill for camp, making payments, switching sessions, requesting financial assistance, that you would talk to Mike. He's at our association office and he's our director of child care administration. He handles all of that stuff. So sometimes I get those questions and I'm like, I don't know. I don't handle that. And so I'll refer you to Mike. And he's located at our Buffalo location in our association office. But outside of that, how are you going to communicate with your camper while they're at camp? Well, there's a couple things. Number one, the first thing I advise is that you pre-write letters. So you can pre-write letters in 2 ways. So you can write letters and send them in, the USPS, so the postal system, snail mail, because it's so slow, right? You can send them through the regular mail, and you can even do it several days ahead of time. Make sure that you put your camper's name on it first and last. And if you know what week they're going to be there, so like the week of July 8th, go ahead and you can just put them in the mailbox, and they come to my mailbox, and we distribute them daily. The other thing you can do is you can pre-write letters and leave them at camp. So the very last kind of stop that you'll make as you're departing camp is to drop off any mail. And for that mail, same thing. You're going to put name of the camper first and last, and put what day you would like it delivered. I have lots of parents, especially of first-time campers, that might write 4 letters. And they'll say, give this one on Monday, and this one on Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday. And so so that way the kids have a letter for each day of the week. So that's a really great way to communicate. The other thing that you can do is in your family guide, there is a Google form link that you could send a message each day through that link. And again, we ask you just to do one a day, and we deliver Monday through Thursday. So since the kids arrive on Sunday, the mail isn't delivered that day, and since kids leave on Friday, we don't tend to deliver on Friday either. So you could send through that Google form a message to your camper. I print it out and we deliver it as soon as possible. It depends when it comes in, but it does get delivered with our regular mail delivery. Okay. The other thing about mail, regardless of whether you pre-write it or you send it through the Google form, have it be happy and upbeat. Try to avoid things like, "Oh, your dog really misses you," or "I miss you so much. I don't know what I'm gonna do." The number one things that kids worry about when they're at camp is about you. They worry about their families and how are they doing. They must miss us so much. And so be as happy and upbeat as possible. This is also a good time to remind you that camp is an electronics free zone. So that means things that are not allowed at camp are anything that has a plug that requires Wi-Fi, that requires the internet. So if it has a plug, if it has electricity or batteries, if it connects to the internet, don't bring it. Now, this is an exception to a flashlight. So you may bring a flashlight to camp with batteries to go in it. You may also bring a camera to camp. So you can use a disposable camera or you could use a digital camera as long as it does not connect to the internet. There are lots of reasons why we have camp remain an electronics free zone. And if there's any parents that want me to talk about it with them further, I would be happy to. The most important thing is though, we are really trying to foster a community at camp. We don't want to have a situation where we have some kids that have something and some that don't. So that's one of the reasons. The other thing is camp is wet, dirty, and sometimes it can just be a little chaotic. And we know how much our electronics cost, especially cell phones. And we don't want your camper to feel really bad if something does happen to it and it gets damaged or broken. The other thing is, as I mentioned, we're really trying to foster a community of people. And so we're really trying to teach your kids and give them experience working on solving problems. So when we say we work on problem solving skills and communication and team building, we mean it. We want the kids to be able to take small problems that they're having, like they didn't like the carrots at dinner, or they didn't have they lost their pen. Things that are small, but kids are so used to right now going to parents or going to somebody else when they have a small problem. We want them to start thinking about this is a problem. What can I do to solve it? Because lots of small problems, if we think about what the alternatives could be and what the possibilities can be, most kids can solve them and they come out better because of it. So some things you want to do is make sure you talk to your camper in that way. Let them know what they should do if they do miss home, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Or if they have a problem, don't tell your campers simply, if you have a problem, you can call me or you can call me anytime, because we find that that actually increases missing home and it kind of spreads amongst the other campers. We're really trying to get them to solve problems and to try to communicate and really to kind of develop those skills. Saying that, if there is ever an emergency at camp, we're going to call you. If your child ever has a concern or has a difficulty that is beyond something that's simple for a long term, we're going to call you. My main goal is to make sure every child who comes to camp has a successful experience in some way. And so we want to be your partner in making sure that that happens. And so if they have a problem, we're going to call you and we're going to say, hey, can you help us to solve this? So know that, we're really your partner in that. Other ways that you can get information, we do have a parent Facebook group. This is a closed group. So when you ask to enter it, it does ask for a password. This just helps to facilitate the process of me accepting people into that group. And that password is in your family guide. So that's another reason to go in there and get that. Um, what do we use it for? So I use it year round to send updates about things that are happening at camp. We have events at Easter time and Christmas time. We have schools out days. I also will post every day, barring, some weird circumstance. Every night when I come home to my house, I will post about what has happened at camp that day. So it's kind of like the 11 o'clock news. And in fact, that's generally when I post it because I don't post it until I leave camp at night. So it's generally sometimes between 10 and midnight. Um, and so don't feel you have to wait up because I know some parents do. You can wait and read it in the morning as well. But I'll give you updates like what did we eat today? What was the weather like? Maybe what did certain groups do? What was something funny that somebody told me that day? And I'll also post a few pictures, a variety of things that happened at camp. Now, we're not able to follow every single camper. So I can't go around with my camera and take pictures of 80 kids while they're at camp every single day. But what I try to do is make kind of this representative post of things that happened at camp. So it might be a couple pictures at the dining hall or the bounce pillow or at the pool. Or if there's some special event happening, like we're having opening ceremony for the Olympics, I'm going to make sure to post those kind of things. During our Best of Camp Keenan week, we do a color run. I'll make sure to post lots of pictures that day. So know that the pictures that I do post are going to be representative of things that are happening at camp. I also do try on the very first day of camp to post a group photo. So you do have, you make sure that you have a picture of your camper and you kind of see the folks that are in their cabin with them. Um, During our first webinar, we covered lots of things, like what does camp look like and what are some of the activities? What do we, where do we stay and where do we eat? So if you haven't had a chance to look at that first webinar, it's a great one to watch with your camper again, because it covers lots of information. I did one in December, January, February, March, and April. So there's like 5 different ones that you can watch. I always encourage you to watch the most recent one. And the links for those are in the family guide as well. They're also in my email. So if you ever get an email from me, it's in that response. But go ahead and watch it. It's less than an hour, but it gives you a good overview of some of the things that happen at camp. One of the big questions I get is packing for camp. So here's another question I have for you, okay? So what is something, you can put this in the chat, what is something you think you should not bring to camp? What's something you shouldn't bring? What do my campers out there think we should not bring to camp? Go ahead and think about that and put it in the chat for me. As you're thinking about that, let me just talk to you a little bit about this list. It is in your family guide. It's probably towards the end a little bit. It gives you just kind of a general idea of what somebody should bring if they are coming for a full week of camp. Things like you should bring 8 pairs of underwear and you should bring a raincoat and 2 pairs of sneakers. Um, if you're coming for a first experience camp, obviously you don't need to bring as many things. You don't need to bring 8 pairs of underwear. You probably need to bring 4 just in case. You don't need to bring 6 t-shirts. You probably just need to bring 3. So you can bring fewer of the clothing items, but a lot of the other things are things that you're going to want to bring. You want to make sure that you have gym shoes. They do not have to be expensive gym shoes, but they should be shoes that tie tightly. because when we go on the rock wall or we're running in the field, we want to make sure those shoes are not going to come off. So that is really important. Um, Sleeping bag. You want to have some kind of bedding. You don't have to have a fancy sleeping bag though. You can bring a couple sheets from home and a comforter and just roll them up and put them in a bag. Just something that's going you're going to be able to sleep in at night and that will be cozy. Maybe it's even the comforter that's on your bed right now. You can bring your pillow. You can bring your favorite stuffed animal. You can bring a book to read. So all those kind of things that maybe you've got beside you right now or you have in bed, you can bring along with you. So some people said, what are some things we shouldn't bring? We shouldn't bring our cell phone. That's correct. And we shouldn't bring too many clothes. Yeah, some often people bring too much, and we find that we don't need it. Oh, and Pat, our camp nurse, says make sure everything is labeled with your name. That is correct. When we're packing for camp, make sure the campers are involved. So you hear me, campers, okay? Make sure that you're helping your family to pack your bags so you know what's in that. Every single week, without fail, I get a call from one of my campers or one of my counselors on the walkie-talkie, and they say, Jay, because that's what they call me at camp. They say, Jay, Susie says that they don't have any underwear. Can you call their mom? And I'm like, hold on. I'm sure Susie has underwear, but it's just because mom or dad so nicely packed it in a Ziploc bag and tucked it in a little pot in a pocket somewhere in their bag, they didn't know where it was. So make sure you know where your items are, and so you can find them. One of the things you could do is you could even play a game. Once you've got your bag packed, your family could say, okay, it's Monday and it's raining out. What would you wear? And you could try to race as fast as you can to your bag and try to find the things that you would need. So you can play a game with it, but the more familiar you are with what's in your bag, the easier it's going to be for you to find it, and the less likely it is for you to lose it. So make sure you label everything with your name and bring items that you can play in. You don't need to get new items. You don't need to go to the store and buy anything fancy. You will get dirty at camp. You will get sweaty. You will be playing in these things. So bring shoes that you can play in and bring clothes that you can play in. So what don't we bring? So we already got that. We don't want to bring any electronics. Don't bring anything that's new or expensive. And don't bring anything that's like not camp appropriate. So there's a list in there of things that you shouldn't bring or the things that might not be camp appropriate. But we really like shirts that cover the shoulders, okay? And we really like shorts that cover your butt and socks that cover your feet and shoes that tie. Our main our main thing that we're worried about is safety and comfort. So make sure you're bringing things that you can have fun in. Some reminders. We ask kids to wear shoes and socks at all times, unless they're in the pool or in the shower or getting ready for bed, because we know that that's the safest and the best way to keep our feet from getting hurt. We don't want anybody to step on a bee or to get stuck by a stick, okay? No sandals, no flip-flops, no Crocs, any shoes that don't have a back on them, that don't have toes on them and can't fully cover your foot. We know that in summer we like our feet to be free, but we want to make sure our feet are also safe, okay? You may bring a pair of water shoes for the shower, or for boating. So those are things that we might slip them on when we're going to those different places. How should you pack your things? Um, Camp is relatively small, but we still are going to have to carry our luggage from the parking lot to our cabin. And so make it into maybe smaller compartments rather than one giant thing. So a smaller duffel bag or a backpack, those are fine. And you could have three smaller pieces rather than one giant one. Okay. No big plastic totes or big coats or trunks. they're just too heavy. And when you get them into the cabins, they're really hard. If you've got 10 people in a cabin, if you've got giant totes all over, it kind of makes it difficult to walk and to kind of live. So you want things that are going to fit underneath your bunk. So when you're not getting out your stuff, you can tuck it under there. So smaller duffel bags, smaller backpacks are always really good. The other thing you'll always want to have is a small day pack. It could be a small backpack that you're going to carry with you during the day that you could put in your book if you want to read it, or you could put in your bug spray or your sunscreen so that you can carry it with you during the day. And here is what the beds look like. We have 14 different cabins at camp. They all house about 12 to 14 people. And there are bunks for at least 10 kids. And then we always have usually two staff or a staff and a CIT, a counselor in training, that are in the cabin. So that was one of the questions that came up on our Google form is how many kids are in the cabin and do the counselors stay with us? And that is an absolute yes. So every cabin, the kids are divided up based on gender and age. And so the girls are all going to be, stay in cabins together, and the boys will stay together. And then I divide them up by age. And it's different each week because some weeks there might be more 7-year-olds, and some weeks there might be more 14-year-olds. So I basically take the whole group and put them into Excel, and I sort them and I divide them into cabins based on their age. There is always a counselor that is in the cabin with them. And that bed here that's on the left, that's right by the front door, and that's where one of your counselors will stay. So they're with you at night at all times. And then there's either a second counselor or there's a CIT in that cabin as well. The cabins all have overhead lights. They have some little shelves that you can put some little things in. But you'll see here what the space is for you to put your duffel bags under. You really want your duffel bag to be able to kind of fit under there. And then what you'll do is you'll basically take your bedding, your sleeping bag, your sleeping bag, and you'll set it up on your bed. You can put sheets on it. That's what I like to do. I like to take like a twin sheet and put it over my mattress. And then I'll put my that's all kind of nice tuckled in there. I'll put my sleeping bag on top of that. So that way, if it's a hot night, I can kind of move my sleeping bag off and I can just stay underneath the sheets. Or if it gets cold, I can pull them up. And then you want to have a pillow. And yes, that is my dinosaur pillow. And you can also have your favorite stuffed animal. So there's my Squishmallow that goes to camp as well. So you can set up your bed when you get there. And there's my turtles that are telling a story. So again, this is kind of what the cabin looks like. You'll see kind of behind those beds, there's a screen. And so the cabins all have these big shutters that open that let in air. And so we like to try to keep those open as much as possible, unless it's raining and it's raining in our windows, because that lets us have like a nice breeze that goes through the cabin, and it lets us hear all the amazing outside noises. I love outside noises. And even right now, I listen every night because we have frogs that are making noises. We've had some gray tree frogs lately that make this like sound. They're really fun. But you'll hear frogs and you'll hear bats and you'll hear all sorts of fun crickets and cicadas. And you'll hear these fun outside noises that help you go to sleep. And so we try to keep those open as much as possible to keep it cool and so that we can hear the fun outdoor noises. How do you know where you're going to stay? When you arrive at camp, you'll check in and you'll be then told which cabin you'll be in. You're going to see in your family guide that there's a couple different schedules for when you arrive at camp. So we divide it into half because what we found is that some families want to go and they want to go see the cabin and they want to help their camper to set up their bed and they want to, kind of walk them there. And so you'll see the first schedule is that anybody who it's their first time at camp or their first experience camper or their camper maybe needs some additional help setting up, they'll come during that first time. So that first check-in time. During that first check-in time, you'll get to carry the luggage to their cabin. You can help your camper settle in. You'll get to meet their counselor, and then you'll say goodbye. After that time, I will then host a question and answer in our dining hall. So anybody who arrives for that first check-in time can come and talk to me. They can leave the mail with me, and then they can leave. The second check-in time is for anybody who feels comfortable. They've been to camp before. Their camper doesn't need any additional help. In that case, you'll get your cabin number. You'll drop off the luggage at our maintenance building, which is at the end of our parking lot, and you'll say goodbye to your camper right then. And we find some people, they just like to come in, drop off, and go. And so we want to make sure we accommodate both parents or both families for that. Uh, in terms of the cabin that you're in, that's really going to base again on age. So campers of similar age are going to be housed together. If your camper has a friend who they really want to be in the cabin with, make sure that on that C form, that camper information form, there is a question on there that says, who do I want to be my cabin mate? If you have somebody who you want in your cabin, write it down there. Make sure you both request each other, and they should be of the similar age. If there are two campers who are more than 2 years apart, so say a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, just keep in mind that we will bunk down, meaning the 12-year-old will go down to the 10-year-old's cabin, not vice versa. So it's something to keep in mind. I also suggest siblings quite often are more successful if they are separated. And so think about that. They're so used to being together at home. Sometimes the conflicts happen. And so if your siblings are willing to be separate, I suggest that. I would also be hesitant about anybody who says they're really best friends, and they have to stay together. What we often find is that best friends who bunk together, sometimes they end up having a conflict by the end of the week. So just don't feel that your camper has to have a bunkmate, that they have to come with somebody. Quite often, kids who don't know anybody at camp are, as successful, if not more successful, than those who come with somebody. So if you have a question about that, you can always message me. Another question that came up is, can I bring snacks and do I need to bring money? So campers have 3 meals a day and an afternoon snack and sometimes even an evening snack. And so we ask that you do not bring or send snacks to camp. There's lots of reasons for that. And the biggest thing is because of allergies. We have some kids that just can't have certain kind of foods and we don't want to expose it to them. Second major thing is animals. We are outdoors, and yes, we are in cabins, but there are small little animals that also like snacks. So things like mice and squirrels and chipmunks. They try really, really hard to get into the cabins, and they can smell things far away. And you might not think that they can get in, but they can get in a very, very teeny tiny hole. And so we do ask that you don't bring or send any snacks to camp. Super, super important. We do have a mid-afternoon snack that's at our snack shack. So some weeks and for some sessions, you'll actually get to come in the snack shack, and you can choose your items. Other times, our kitchen staff will bring snacks out to our bleacher area for you to have, and you can choose. So our mid-afternoon period when we have snacks is also when we have our choice time. So it's a period of about 45 minutes mid-afternoon where the kids have an opportunity to kind of choose what activities they want to do in the main part of camp. All the counselors are there. They kind of divide up into different areas. And so you could go play basketball or you could just sit at the bleachers and read or relax. There might be an arts and craft. You might get to play Gaga or go play soccer on the field. It's just kind of a very relaxing time mid-afternoon. And that's, again, when we bring out snacks. we try to bring out snacks that are a combination of fruits, vegetables, and protein. So it might be something like carrots and dip or yogurt. It might be ice cream. It could be popcorn. Certain things like that that are healthy but are going to give you a little boost in the middle of the day. And you don't need money. There's nothing at camp to buy. So I would suggest keeping your money at home, save it, and that way you won't lose it. As I mentioned, you don't need to bring money. What you can do is families are completely it's completely optional, but if you wanted to order a t-shirt or a hoodie, we do have them available. So there are a link in your family guide. We go through Create My Tea, and you can purchase one of four different items this year. They have on them, it's the logo that you see there. We do a different color every year. This year is maroon. And there is a white shirt that if you wanted to purchase that, kids on tie-dye day, they can tie-dye that shirt and take it home with them. That ends up being one of the activities we do during choice time in the afternoon snack time. We also have a pre-tie-dyed shirt this year that you can purchase, and then just a maroon t-shirt and a maroon hoodie. So those are the four items. The way that it works is you place your order on Create My Tea using that link. It's in your family guide. You want to place it by the end of the day on Wednesday, June 4th, which is coming up really soon. And then what happens is Create My Tea makes all the pieces, and then they ship them to camp, and then they are available for you to pick up at when you arrive to camp. So if you want to get in on those orders, you want to get in soon, because there's less than a week before that order is going to close. It is totally optional, but lots of kids like to have something, and they all have the 100-year logo on them this year. Another question that we have is about swim tests. I know there was somebody who said that swimming was one of the things they were really looking forward to. And so we want to make sure again that everybody's going to be safe. We have an awesome pool that goes from 2.5 feet to 9 feet. So it's not super deep, but it is super shallow. So even our smallest campers are able to swim and enjoy themselves with their counselors in the pool with them. Again, it's, only 2.5 feet at the shallowest section. Kids are going to have a chance to swim every day, but the first time that they go to the pool, we're going to give them a quick swim test. That swim test basically shows us, can they swim unassisted? Are they going to be safe in the deep end? And if a child doesn't want to do the swim test, then we automatically just classify them as a non-swimmer, and they'll stay in that shallow section. Our lifeguards are there the whole time the kids are swimming, as well as when they're doing swim tests. The other question is always about showers. Do we have showers? Do we have to take them? When do we take them? So yes, there are showers in both our girls and our boys' restrooms. And we also have outdoor showers outside the pool. And so all the kids, before they go in the pool, are going to go rinse underneath the shower that's outside the pool. So you get off a lot of that bug spray and things like that before you go in the pool. So we're not swimming in that. And then afterwards, they can rinse off outside. And then a couple times during the week, kids are scheduled to take showers. Now, that does not mean that they will take a shower. We will give them the opportunity to, and we'll encourage them to take a shower. So again, that's something that if your camper is not comfortable taking a shower, or you kind of have to force them to take a shower, talk to them about that. Talk to them about how important it is to take a shower a couple times during the week. They're single stalls, so they get to shower privately. And then counselors are there also if they need assistance, like turning on the water or getting it off, things like that. But yes, we have showers that are available at camp, both private ones as well as outdoor ones. So what can we do to prepare? Question before I talk about this. If my campers out there, let me ask you, what is something that you're worried about camp? What is something that you're thinking, oh, I wonder about this, or I am worried about that? What's something that maybe you're worried about? Put that in the chat. I'd like to know what you might be worried about. what's something that you might be worried about? And if you're not worried about anything, you can put that as well. Okay, so somebody said they're worried about missing home. Somebody says they're not quite sure yet, and that is totally fine. So let me talk to you a little bit about some things you might do to prepare so that you're going to have a really great time at camp. So here's some things you might want to practice while you're at home, if this isn't something you're already comfortable with. So practice making your bed. How do you make your sheet go on your bed? How do you pull up your covers, right? How do you change your clothes privately? That might be something you want to try. So again, campers, parents really encourage kids to try some of these things by yourself. Somebody says they were maybe worried about getting locked in a room. Well, that's definitely a worry and something that we've not had happen that I know of. Um, One of the things that's important to know is you're never going to be alone at camp. Your counselor is always going to be there with you, and we have a rule of three, meaning there always has to be three people who go anywhere at any time. So if you get locked in somewhere, there's always going to be somebody who's going to be able to help you and they'll get you out. Okay? So that's a good question. Practice going to bed at night or practice going to the bathroom at night. You could even make it a game. All the lights are off and maybe you have a flashlight with you. Take your flashlight out. Practice picking out your own clothes and then putting your dirty clothes away in a hamper or in a bag. Practice taking a shower and washing and rinsing your hair. Sometimes that's the toughest part is getting all that shampoo out of your hair. Um, hanging your towel up after a shower. How to apply sunscreen or insect repellent. One of the things we always have to teach kids is that, especially spray sunscreen and insect repellent, if you're putting it on, you have to make sure that you're not around anybody else and that you kind of have a safe spot because you don't want to spray sunscreen or insect repellent in somebody's eyes or in their mouth. Practice washing your hands. We wash our hands before and after every meal to make sure that we stay safe and we stay healthy. The other thing is drinking and carrying a water bottle. One of the things you'll hear all the time at camp is, do you have your water bottle? Is your water bottle full? Did everybody take a drink? And so you may be used to just going into your kitchen and grabbing a cup and drinking something, but you might want to practice holding and carrying a water bottle. Um, Maybe you want to have a sleepover at somebody's house, maybe a grandma, grandpa's, or a friend's house, and practice that. The thing that I want to make sure you know, though, is that if you ever have a problem or a challenge or you can't find something, you always have a counselor there to ask. And there's lots of counselors. We have about 30 or more staff that are at camp, including myself. And so you talk to your counselors. You can talk to other counselors that maybe aren't even in your cabin. You can come talk to me. You can talk to the nurse. There's always somebody to talk to if you ever have a problem. And so who are these counselors? Um, I like to think that I try to choose counselors that are special magical beings, okay? They like to have fun, they like to play games, they like to sing songs, and they know how to be silly. So the staff member that's here on the left, his camp name is Rusty. So all of our counselors sometimes have funny names because, like I said, I think they're like magical special beings. Rusty, this will be his 7th year at camp. He's our day camp director, and sometimes you might see him at the Y because he works some of our programs as well. Our counselors like to dress up, they tell stories, they tell jokes, they'll read you a story at night, and they come from all over the world. Lots of our staff were once campers at camp, but others of them come just because they loved camp. So, our camp chef, his camp name is Pappy, he comes here from Texas. One of our lifeguards, she comes from Poland. And we have staff from all over the world. So not just the United States, but we have staff from England and Scotland and Germany, Mexico, Hungary. So all over the world. And so you get to learn about all different places and different things that they do there, things that might be different to you. And our camp nurse, her camp name is Noah. So if you know the story of Noah's Ark, all the animals had to come two by two into the ark. Well, the same thing happens if you're going to the nurse. You always make sure you bring a buddy with you, and so we call her Noah. So let me give you let's see here what I got, because we need to ask another question. Let me check my polls for you. Doo, doo, doo. We got that. We got that. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and you can type it into the chat. I'm going to give you 5 names. So these are people's camp names, okay? These are people's camp names, and I want you to tell me which one you think is not a counselor's camp name, okay? So I'm going to give you 5 names. These are their funny camp names, and you tell me which one you think is not a real counselor, okay? Number 1, Rusty. Okay. Number 2, Casey. Number 3, Hummer. Number 4, Bambi. Or number 5, Flyer. Okay. I don't know if I'll remember all those. So it was Rusty, Casey, Hummer, Bambi, or Flyer. Which of those do you think is not a real camp counselor? Which of those do you think is real? Okay, we have 1 vote for Flyer, 1 vote for Bambi. Who else has a vote? Who else? Anybody else have a vote? That's okay. Well, the answer is, out of those 5, Bambi is not a real camp counselor, at least not yet. It could be that one of our new counselors chooses to be Bambi, but not as of right now. So as I already introduced you to, Rusty is our day camp director. And he's been at camp for 7 years. Casey is one of our specialists, and he does archery quite often. And Casey was a camper at both Keenan and Weona. He was a CIT, and a he's been a staff at camp for the last 5 years. Hummer is our assistant director, Diane, that I mentioned earlier. No Bambi. And then Flyer is one of our day camp counselors. So you get to meet all of them. Now, I know that one of our big worries was what happens if we miss home. You'll notice that I quite often use home missing or what happens if we miss home rather than saying homesickness. Because the thing is that everybody misses home. And that's okay. It's not necessarily a sickness. It's not something that's like that. It doesn't catch in the same way. You can't pass it on. So it's not like it's a sickness. It's just something that happens. And everybody misses home. Even I miss home, and I live at the end of the driveway. I have my dogs here, and I have my comfy bed. And if I'm at camp and it's like I'm tired, I'm like, I just miss home. The biggest thing that you can do is prepare ahead of time. Know that you're gonna miss home, and it's okay. So know to expect it. Have a plan of what you're gonna do if you miss home. Like you might write a letter, or you might think about the things that you've enjoyed at camp that you want to share with your family. Maybe you want to read a book or you want to draw. Think of things that you're going to share with your family when you get home. Now, parents, this is something you can really help your campers with. Help them know what to do. Help them to know that, yes, you're going to miss home and we're going to miss you horribly. And camp is pretty cool. We do lots of fun things while you're at camp, and I can't wait to hear about them. And know that if you do miss home, we're thinking about you and we're okay. Often when kids say they miss home, They talk to me about how worried they are. They're worried about their family. They know that mom is going to miss them. They're worried that somebody is going to take care of their dog. I had a camper last year that was worried that they were going to miss their streak in Snapchat. So let them know that it's okay to miss home. And you can also write them letters ahead of time, things that are upbeat and happy and that are jokes, and that you're reinforcing to them that they're being really brave. They're learning lots of new things. They're doing things that they couldn't do at home. And that just being really positive about it is really going to help them. Um, I also talk to a lot of parents during the summer who miss their kids. And it is totally acceptable for you to give me a call during the day or send me a quick email and say, hey, can you just let me know that Susie's okay? I was just worried about her. I was having a thought, and I just want to make sure it's okay. You can miss them too, and you can call us and you can check in on them. Usually it's either myself or our camp nurse that's going to answer the phone in those cases. And it might take us an hour or so to be able to go find where they are and check in with their counselor, because usually what I'll do is I'll go to their activity, I'll observe them and I'll watch to see how they're interacting and how they're participating. I'll chat with their counselor and say, "Hey, can you let me know how they're doing?" And then I'll usually also chat with the camper and say, "Hey, talk to me about what you're doing. What's something that you've been doing that you've had fun?" And then I'll report back to you. So please don't feel bad about calling. Um, you can totally do that, and we can check in on them for you. Um, Rarely we have campers. I'm just going to go back here for a moment. Rarely we have campers that miss home to the extent that we need to give you a call. And so when are we going to call you? Usually we're going to call you if your camper is visibly upset. So they're crying, and they are not participating in activities. If that's the case, we'll give you a call and just say, hey, we just want to let you know that they're a little bit sad. They are missing home. Is there anything you could suggest that we could do that might brighten them up? Is there something that you can tell me about their day, about your day? Is there, could you let me know how things are going at home so that we can go and talk to them? It is very common for campers to miss home on their first night, especially. And so that is common. And so it's, like I said, it's okay for that on the first night, but if it extends for more than one night, and they are visibly upset, they are not participating in activities, then we are going to call you. Because like I said, we're partners in this, and I'm here to make sure they have a successful time. So I'm going to make sure that you help us with that. So now it's time to go to camp. When you arrive to camp on check-in day, which is going to be Sundays for a full week of camp and Wednesdays for a first experience camp, you're going to come down this huge long driveway, and then you're going to come to our parking lot, and you're going to see the first thing you're going to see is the climbing wall and the lake. And you'll pull into camp into the parking lot, and you'll come to our welcome pavilion where we'll check you in. And then depending on if you're going to be going to the cabins or you're going to be dropping off, we'll let you know where to go from there. So our first people that arrive at camp are our CITs and our LITs. So that's our counselors in training and leaders in training. And then the first check-in is for our first experienced campers, new campers, or anybody who needs some additional assistance. Parents will check in their campers, they'll take their luggage to camp, and then they can attend an orientation session with me if they wish. Okay. Returning campers and those who don't need any additional assistance, they're going to come a little bit later. Parents are going to check in, they're going to drop off the luggage, and then they're going to leave. And so the second set takes less than 30 minutes. The first drop off can take longer. Okay. And then when we go home at the end of the week, so we believe that having our parents come back to camp is a celebration, right? We get to show them where we stayed during the week, maybe our favorite counselor or a new friend that we have. And so at the end of the week on Fridays, we have what we call a gathering. Um, and so this is when you're going to pick up your camper. It's between 4:45 and 6 p.m. And you'll come in, and you'll come to our welcome pavilion, and at that point, you'll let us know, are you staying for dinner or are you heading home? You'll also, when you check in, you'll kind of give us an idea if you're going to be staying so we can count numbers and make sure we have enough food ready. But if you are picking your camper up and you're going home, we'll radio down to the dining hall where all the kids are, and we'll have your kids escorted up to the welcome pavilion. If you're staying for dinner, usually we have hot dogs and hamburgers and some, summer salads and fruit and things like that. Then you'll come down to the dining hall. We'll have your camper come out of the dining hall, and then you can go and have dinner. We do serve dinner just between 5 and 5:45. So if you come earlier, you might just have to wait a little bit, or if you come later, we have to see whether we have anything left at that point. But you can eat dinner. Again, you can go to the cabin. You can walk around camp. You can play basketball if you want. You can bounce on the bounce pillow. But we want your camper to really be able to show you some of their favorite spots at camp. One of the last things is that we do have our last open house of the season, which is coming up this Sunday, and it is 11 to 3. And we call this our open house and day of play. So it's, you'll come if you want to take a tour of camp. We'll have tours starting every hour on the half hour. So it'll be 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, and 2:30. We'll have tours starting where a staff member will take you all throughout camp. You can go through a cabin. They'll just show you everything and answer your questions along the way. You can come into the dining hall. You can go bounce on the bounce pillow. You can try archery. You can meet myself. You can meet our assistant camp director, our nurse, our cook, and other camp staff will be there. If you have paperwork you haven't handed in yet, you can bring that with you. And you can also register for camp on site. We'll also have food available for purchase. So if you want to come in and get a hot dog and some chips, you can do that too. So that is this Sunday. You don't have to pre-register, but if you do pre-register, I do send you a reminder email on Saturday that says, here's where to go and here's what's going to be happening, and just some reminders about the day. So if you did want to pre-register, you can do that on the YMCA Buffalo website. You could also email me and I'd be happy to do that as well. Our next step, if you do have any specific questions about your camper, please reach out to me. You can send me an email. My email address is there, and you should have also received emails from me already. So please feel free to reach out because, again, I want to make sure you're going to have a successful time at camp. And if you do come to the open house on Sunday, I would be happy to answer your questions there as well. I will be at the dining hall, most likely, posted there. I have a cast on my leg, so I have to go around with crutches or my rolly scooter right now. So I won't be wandering around camp too much, so I shouldn't be too hard to find. So please come and visit me and ask any questions that you have. And then if you do still have paperwork or forms that you need to turn in, as I mentioned, you can turn them in person or by mail to the Lockport Family YMCA. Or if you're closer to one of the other branches like Southtowns, Independent Health, Kenton, you can go ahead and you can turn them in there instead. They'll send them on to me. It just might take a couple days. If you can't make that June 2nd deadline to get your forms in, don't worry. It's going to take me at least a week to go through all those forms before I start to notify people of things that we're missing. So I'm going to have over 300 campers forms to look at to make sure they have everything. And so I'm likely going to start contacting families, around the 10th of June to make sure that we have everything that we need. So here is your chance. If you do have any questions, you can go ahead and let me know. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take us off record, and then you folks can go ahead and you can ask any questions you have.